Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is brought to you by the Nepali Diaspora Network. Really, your go-to source for news, views, and insights that matter to Nepalese living all around the world.
Think of this as like the audio version of their newsletter. We want to get you quickly up to speed on the really important stuff happening right now.
Exactly. So today, we've got two main areas we're going to unpack. First up, those rising tensions between India and Pakistan. We need to look at what's going on and, crucially, what it means for Nepalese citizens.
And second, we'll do a bit of a roundup of key events happening within Nepal itself. Lots going on there, too. Oh, and just a quick note for you listening throughout our chat, we'll be pronouncing Nepali as Nepalese.
Good point. Okay, so we've pulled together information from, news articles, official government statements, reports from the Diaspora Network, trying to give you that full picture.
Yeah, the goal here is really clear, concise insight. We want you to understand what's happening, but without feeling totally overwhelmed by all the details.
All right, let's dive in then. This situation between India and Pakistan, it's flared up again, hasn't it?
It really has. It seems the immediate trigger was that awful killing of tourists back on April 22nd in Jammu and Kashmir.
And tragically, a Nepalese national was among those killed.
Yes, that's right, which of course brings this conflict very close to home for many.
And the response from both sides was, well, pretty immediate and forceful. India launched Operation Sindoor.
That's what they termed it. Airstrikes, they said, targeting alleged terrorist infrastructure inside Pakistan.
And then Pakistan responded.
They did, with Operation Bunyan on Marsus. They reported hitting Indian military sites and infrastructure, so a definite back and forth.
It sounds quite serious, especially with reports of drones and artillery being used by both sides.
Absolutely. And sadly, that's led to civilian casualties. Reports mention at least 5 civilians killed in Kashmir, another 4 in Pakistan-administered Kashmir.
Some sources are even putting the total civilian death toll, as reported by each side since this kicked off, as high as 17. That's quite worrying.
It is. And naturally, the Nepalese government had to react quickly, focusing on the safety of its citizens caught in the middle.
What have they been doing?
Well, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says they're in constant contact with Nepalese nationals in Pakistan. One report mentioned about 100 students specifically.
That's good to hear they're reaching out.
And crucially, they've set up hotlines for Nepalese citizens in both India and Pakistan who might need help.
Okay, useful information. Do we have those details?
We do. For the Nepalese embassy in Islamabad, you can contact 3rd Secretary Vrinda Subedi-Khadka on +92 331 329 3119.
Got it.
Or Arsalan Mahmood on +92 340 517 7421. And there's an email too, khanislamabad@mofa.gov.np.
Perfect. We'll make sure those are clear for anyone listening who needs them. And the Prime Minister got involved too.
Yes, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli spoke directly with the Indian ambassador. He gave assurances that Nepalese soil wouldn't be used against any neighbors.
A standard diplomatic reassurance, but important in this context.
Very much so. And the Foreign Ministry also put out a statement condemning terrorism, naturally, and calling for both sides to de-escalate.
This must be causing concern back in Nepal's parliament as well.
Definitely. Speaker Devraj Gaimar actually directed the government to start drafting evacuation plans, just in case.
Really? Evacuation plans? What prompted that?
It seems it followed reports from some Nepalese students in Lahore. They mentioned airspace being shut down, even hearing blasts nearby, understandably alarming stuff.
Absolutely. I can imagine how worrying that must be.
And other lawmakers are echoing these concerns. We heard from Sumana Shrestha of the RSP, that's the Rashtriya Swatantra Party.
The newer party, yeah.
Right. She shared an email from students pleading for evacuation. And her colleague, Shishir Kanal, also RSP, specifically called for the immediate evacuation of around 80 students in Pakistan. So it's definitely being discussed at a high level.
And are we seeing any effects, like, on the ground? At the border, perhaps?
Yes. Reports indicate security has been visibly increased at the Nepal-India border, specifically at the Nepalganj-Jamunaha crossing.
How so?
ID checks are now mandatory to enter Nepal there. India had already put similar checks in place on their side, but now Nepal is doing it too.
Interesting. It shows the heightened state of alert.
And it's not just Nepal feeling the tension. The Chinese embassy in Nepal actually advised its own citizens to steer clear of the Nepal-India border area because of the situation.
Wow. Okay. That underlines the regional ripple effect.
Huh?
Are Nepalese in India returning home?
We are hearing some reports of that, yes. People likely just being cautious, choosing to come back given the uncertainty.
Now, within Nepal itself, How is this being viewed? Is there a consensus?
Not entirely, no. You have different perspectives emerging. The ruling party, the Nepali Congress, has described India's actions as a justified stand against terrorism.
So taking a clear stance there.
Yes, but then you have other voices urging Nepal to remain, quote, neutral yet not passive.
Neutral yet not passive. What does that mean in practice?
Well, it highlights the potential economic and diplomatic fallout if Nepal aligns too strongly. You have to remember there are, over 30,000 Nepalists serving in the Indian Army.
That's a huge number.
Exactly. Plus the currency peg with Indian rupee, the reliance on trade routes through India. It's a very delicate balancing act for Nepal.
It certainly sounds like it. Did the Indian ambassador offer any further reassurances?
He did. He emphasized that Operation Sindoor was targeted specifically at terrorists and their backers, aimed at preventing future attacks. He also stated that India doesn't want to escalate things further.
And crucially for Nepal's economy.
He gave assurances that essential supply chains, things like fuel coming into Nepal, wouldn't be disrupted by this.
That's a vital point for everyday life in Nepal. But still, there must be concerns for the huge number of Nepalists living and working across India. Hundreds of thousands, right?
Absolutely. While supplies might be okay, the general security atmosphere, the potential for wider instability, it's definitely something the diaspora and the government are watching very closely.
Okay, a really complex and quite worrying situation there. Let's shift gears now and look at some key things happening within Nepal. The Non-Resident Nepali Association, the NRNA, had a big meeting recently.
Yes, the Unity Convention. This was quite significant because it was mandated by both the Supreme Court and the Foreign Ministry.
Why was that needed?
Well, the NRNA has unfortunately been plagued by internal divisions for years, often driven by, politics back in Nepal and disputes over their own internal elections. This convention was meant to finally bring people together.
Did it work?
To a large extent, yes. Foreign Minister Arzu Ranadiba was very clear. She said the ministry only recognizes one official NRNA leadership and really pushed for unity.
And they elected new leadership.
They did, unanimously, actually. Mahesh Shrestha, who's an entrepreneur based in Japan, is the new president, and a whole new executive committee was elected, too, covering all the key roles and regions globally.
But was everyone on board? I seem to recall there were different factions.
That's the slight complication. The faction led by Badri KC and also the founding president Upendra Mahato, they weren't there. They argue their term runs until October and are apparently planning their own meeting.
So maybe not quite full unity just yet?
Perhaps not entirely seamless, but this convention was a major step, and it produced the Kathmandu Declaration.
What did that call for?
Two key things, mainly. Swift legal amendments to give NRN's constitutional rights linked to citizenship, and setting up ways for Nepalists abroad to actually vote in Nepalese elections.
The citizenship issue. That's a long-standing one, isn't it? Dual citizenships, specifically.
Very much so. It was a big topic at the convention. People pointed out that while NRNs can visit, they often lack basic rights like voting or owning property easily. They compared it to India, and I think someone mentioned 72 other countries that allow some form of dual nationality.
So the argument is grant more rights, get more engagement.
Exactly. And also more investment. Many feel the lack of dual citizenship discourages diaspora investment. There were also concerns raised about the status of Nepalists who've taken foreign citizenship, their potential vulnerability.
Is the government listening on this?
It seems so. A representative from the law ministry assured the convention that a new law tackling these NRN citizenship issues is being drafted, so definitely something to watch.
Okay, let's move to the economy. Any major projects moving forward?
Yes, quite a few things happening. The government seems to be pushing ahead with financing for that huge Karnali-Chisapani multi-purpose project, the 10,800 milliW one.
That's massive. How are they financing it?
It looks like a regional collaboration. Plans involve investment from Nepal, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. That kind of joint effort is pretty significant.
Definitely. And at the provincial level?
Koshi province has announced a plan for a 26 billion green hydrogen fertilizer plant. A first for Nepal.
Green hydrogen, that sounds quite forward-looking.
It does. This came out of their recent investment summit, where apparently deals for 46 projects worth over 52 billion rupees were agreed. The fertilizer plant aims to produce 200,000 metric tons a year, which could really help agriculture.
Interesting. What about national planning? Any changes there?
Yeah, the National Planning Commission, the NTC, has streamlined its big list of projects, the project bank. They've cut it down from like 18,000 projects to just over 7,300.
Wow, that's a big cut. Why?
The focus now is meant to be on projects that are actually ready to go and are high priority. And they've set a minimum size only projects over 30 million rupees are eligible now. Trying to be more strategic, it seems.
Makes sense. Any completed projects to report?
Yes, good news on the hydropower front. The 25 milliW Seti River project in Snosky district is finished. It cost about Rs 6 billion and is expected to bring in around Rs 870 million in revenue in its first year. More clean energy coming online.
Always good to hear. What about special economic zones? Any progress there?
The Borehawa SEZ seems to be picking up steam. Exports hit Rs 770 million in the first 9 months of this fiscal year. That's from the 10 industries operating there now, making things like steel utensils and crusher products.
So increased activity.
Looks like it, though interestingly, they've apparently reduced the export quota requirement for industries in the SEZ down to 30%. Might be trying to make it more attractive.
Right. And is the government still trying to revive those old state-owned factories?
Yes, there's a renewed push for 7 of them, like the Janakpur cigarette factory, Gorakhali rubber, Udaipur cement. They want to use public-private partnerships.
How's that progressing?
An expert committee has been set up. They've got 3 months to come back with a plan on how to actually do it, so we'll see what they propose.
Okay. Any support for smaller businesses?
Yes, nearly 700 startups, 661 to be precise, have been selected for loans, up to Rs 2.5 million each, at a really low 3% interest rate.
What kind of startups?
Focus seems to be on agriculture, processing industries, and tourism, key growth areas.
Good to see that support. What about wages? Are they keeping up?
There was an average increase of about 2.85% in labor wage rates last year across different sectors. The biggest jump, almost 5%, was in agriculture, forestry, and fisheries.
Okay. And any major infrastructure updates for the public?
Big news for Kathmandu Valley residents. The Malamshi water distribution network is expanding beyond the ring road.
Oh, that's significant. Who will benefit?
The plan is to serve an extra 63,000 households in several municipalities. They're laying nearly 900 kilometers of new pipelines. Should make a big difference to water access.
That's huge. What about air travel? How are the numbers looking?
Trebhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu was busy. Over 10 million passengers passed through in the last Nepali calendar year, 2081 BS.
10 million. When was the peak?
Peak traffic was in Kartik, which is around mid-October to mid-November. Shows how vital TIA is.
Definitely. And looking ahead, any major investment plans?
Investment Board Nepal, or IBN, just approved its strategy for the next few years up to 2086 BS. They've set some really ambitious goals.
Like what?
They're targeting the completion of 11 projects worth almost $9 billion and getting another 14 projects worth up to $5.5 billion to the final construction stage, all under the public-private partnership model.
Wow, those are big numbers, especially compared to past performance.
They certainly are. It signals a strong push for major infrastructure development.
And finally, on the economic front, any changes to how foreign aid is handled?
Yes. The government has brought in a new foreign aid mobilization policy for 2025. The aim is to make better use of foreign assistance, again, through public-private partnerships.
Why the change?
There have been concerns about aid not being used effectively, low utilization rates, plus the nature of aid is changing, more loans, fewer grants. So this policy tries to address that, make it more strategic.
Makes sense. Okay, let's touch on a few social and cultural highlights before we wrap up. The Everest climbing season is open.
It is. The rope fixing team, those amazing Sherpas, reached the summit, opening the route. 421 climbers have permits this season.
Another busy year. Any standout stories?
Well, Kamirita Sherpa is going for his 31st summit. Just incredible. And another climber, Tashi Galzin Sherpa, has this astonishing plan to climb Everest 4 times in just 20 days.
4 times in 20 days.
Yeah.
That's almost unbelievable.
Mind-boggling endurance. And speaking of Sherpa achievements, 5 siblings from Sankhosaba all summited Mount Makalu together. A real family triumph.
That's wonderful. Anything else on the social front?
Just a health warning, unfortunately. With the monsoon rains starting, the Ministry of Health is warning about a potential rise in dengue cases.
Ah, yes, an ongoing issue.
Sadly, yes. Nearly 1,000 cases already reported this year, so they're urging everyone to take precautions, clear standing water, use repellents, that sort of thing.
Right. Important advice.
Ah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today.
We really have, from those serious India-Pakistan tensions and what they mean for Nepalese citizens, both abroad and potentially at home.
To all the activity within Nepal, the NRNA's push for unity, those significant economic projects getting underway, infrastructure improvements like Malamchi, and even the start of the Everest season.
It really paints a picture of a country navigating regional complexities while also driving internal development.
And all of this, as we said, directly or indirectly touches the lives of the Nepalese diaspora, whether it's safety concerns, investment opportunities, or just staying connected to home.
Absolutely. And if you want to delve deeper into any of these stories or stay plugged into the global Nepalese community, definitely check out nepalidiaspora.net.
Good shout. And also, a quick mention for belayat.uk if you're a Nepali living in the UK. It's a fantastic classified site, great for finding jobs, housing, seeing what events are on, and supporting local Nepali businesses there.
Definitely a useful resource. So as we finish up, maybe a thought to leave you with. As Nepal juggles these external pressures and pushes forward internally, the role of a connected, engaged diaspora seems more critical than ever.
That's a great point. What role do you, listening now, see yourself playing in that future? Something to think about.
Indeed.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive brought to you by the Nepali Diaspora Network. We'll catch you next time.